I think it's so tired I'm having nightmares because I ate too much
Okay.
chocolate before bed.
Hey everyone, welcome to Firefox Hot Takes, where we fan the flames of internet culture. 3 sizzling topics, 2 POVs. I'm Steve Flavin, and guess who's back? It's Hannah Bullion.
I'm back. I have more opinions, more hot takes.
We're wired it girls this time. We have our wired headphones. We're twinning, and we got some pretty wild topics this time. All of them are AI related, so let's just get right into it. We're going to start with kind of a softball one. This one's like the least contentious of the 3, I would say, is Amazon announced a bunch of new products recently.
Yes,
and,
they did.
a lot of smart home products, some Kindle products. There's a new Echo Dot Max, which is an interesting combination of
Totally.
words. So it's an upgrade from their previous Echo Dot, but it supposedly sounds better, has more bass, and then a new Echo Studio, which is like their big flagship speaker, and is supposed to sound really good. I want to zoom out completely in terms of just the smart
Let's do
home of
it.
it all. I'm actually super curious what your thoughts are around smart home devices in general, and do you have a smart home setup? Do you have any thoughts around like AI assistants in the home?
No, I don't think I have any AI in my home. No AI in this house. I like turning off the lights on my own. I like flipping the switch. I like manually getting out of bed to turn off the lights. Like, sue me. It's important. It builds character.
Yeah, I have a thought. So and this is going to turn into a rant on
Rant,
smart homes.
please.
So first of all, like speaking specifically to the Amazon of it all, and Alexa in particular, Mozilla used to do a buyer's guide called Privacy Not Included.
Yes.
We haven't updated it this year, but the website is still live. I'll put the link in the description. And we definitely have reviewed Amazon devices in the past. And spoiler alert, privacy is not included with those Amazon devices. So the terms of service,
Shocker.
like basically the buyer's guide, we had a team of people whose job it was to read all of the terms of service that we all just like click accept, and we just kind of hope that there's nothing too creepy in there. Well, guess what? Sometimes there is some creepy stuff that you're agreeing to that you're just oblivious to, and these are obviously new devices. I imagine there's a revised terms of service. I would not imagine
Hopefully.
that it's dramatically different than their previous devices. So check it out. AI responsibly. Be careful with what you're signing up for.
Are you shocked though that Amazon
No,
doesn't
I'm
put
not shocked at
privacy
all.
in the
No, I
top?
mean it feeds into their it is like their whole ecosystem of selling things to you, right?
Yeah,
Which in some way, in a cynical way, right, it makes it more efficient as a platform, to
totally.
as it becomes more familiar with your tastes and your behaviors. It can make smarter recommendations, if you're comfortable with that. The smart home devices that I have, I tend to default to Apple devices, and
Yeah.
the Apple HomePod and HomePod Mini. I have a HomePod, actually, it's right behind me on my shelf, is my
Zoom
living
in.
room speaker, and then I have a little HomePod Mini in my office, which the speaker, like, it sounds great, but I feel like literally half the time I ask Siri to do something, to like change the lights or play a song, nothing will happen. And then like 5 minutes later,
Maybe
Siri
she
will
has an
wake up and
attitude.
yeah, no, it's like she's very passive aggressive. It's like 5 minutes later, she'll say, "Sorry, some accessories didn't respond," and I'm like, "No, like, thank you for that status update, but like, I figured you were having trouble when nothing happened." And so it's so ingratiating. But most of the time when that happens, I'll go into the Home app and I'll look, and there's like some software update for the HomePod that needs to
Oh,
happen. And it's like, well, why doesn't that just like auto update, or, and maybe it does, or I just like set something wrong, but it's like it requires too much maintenance.
yeah.
It's like I feel like something, a product like that should just work.
It should just
Um,
update. Unless it's my phone. I don't want that updated.
so I don't love that. And then, it's really only good for like changing the lights and like setting a timer. If you ask any kind of complex search, it'll say, you could find the results on your phone. It's like, okay, well,
Girl, that's not
then
what
I
I'm
guess I should have just
asking.
taken out my phone and search it up. Like, why? Like, it's just such a pointless
At that rate,
exercise,
you would open up Firefox
right?
and do a search on whichever search platform you prefer.
Exactly, because we're all about
Wait,
choice.
exactly. Um, Not to go back to smart houses and a blast from the past, but do you remember that movie Smart House? It was a Disney Channel original movie.
I do vaguely remember it. Yes.
Because I was reading the Amazon Home updates. I was reading all the products, and that was my number one thought was like, I think we were warned about this 25 years ago in a Disney Channel original
We're
movie
living in the
when
future.
she made all those kids spin in the house and she came to life.
We're
So
seeing a
I don't
lot of
know.
like, because I love horror movies. We're seeing a lot of like AI horror that's like coming out. It's like we've got Black Mirror on Netflix, right? So it's like,
And famously, we loved Companion.
yes, no, I love that.
Great movie.
Yeah, no, we're living in a horror show now. It's like
Yeah.
it's kind of scary. But back to the smart bulbs.
Yes.
You mentioned you prefer using a light switch, which is fair. That's very reasonable. My lease is almost up in my current apartment. I might be moving next year. I fantasize constantly about downgrading to a dumb home because of just how much maintenance it is. I've had and this isn't a knock on Philips Hue because I think that they're one of the best smart bulb makers. And I've had a Philips Hue setup, I would say, for probably 10 plus years now. Um, and I like that their diversity of products. The bulbs are good quality. They're LED. They're energy efficient. I had to replace a bulb recently, and so this is like, it lasted for 10 years, so that's pretty good.
That's
But it was
amazing.
kind of on the fritz. It was like blinking, and so I'm like, okay, it's time. The time has come. I'm going to replace this bulb. Um, and like a regular bulb, it's not very complicated to change. You unscrew it, put in a new bulb, and you're done. With a smart
So,
bulb, you
what
have to
did
set
you?
it up. You have to pair it with your with the bridge, and then you have to reset all of your scenes because you have all of your lights grouped into like what rooms that they are, and then like different scenes and like clusters of lights, and so it probably took me a whole hour. Just way more effort. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is this like,
What?
to like tell Siri to turn off the lights at the end of the
What?
night?
That
I
is something that I would. You know what? I did buy an IKEA smart bulb, and guess what? It's still in the box. I haven't
mm,
figured out how to do it. I haven't taken the time to figure out how to do it because I'm like, I don't think it's worth it.
well, I think that's all we have to say about that.
Yeah.
There's not really much more to add. So, as with every segment, Amazon smart devices, are they fire or are they tired?
Well, the Amazon Fire TV is surely a Fire TV,
By
but
name.
in general, tired.
I'm gonna say tired. It's a bit of a snooze, right? It's like it's cool. It's good for Amazon. They upgraded their devices as they do every year, and
Sure.
they seem to be better than last year, as I would expect. They're affordable. I love that for
Yeah.
them.
And I'm happy for everyone who feels like their home is getting an upgrade and, feels good about it.
Well, our next segment
Ooh,
is
what's
AI
next?
related.
Okay.
OpenAI released a new app called Sora, which is based on their Sora video generator, and they updated to the latest version of Sora called Sora 2, and it's invitation only at the moment. I'm a little salty about that because I downloaded it and I haven't gotten an invite code yet, in spite of being a ChatGPT subscriber. So I don't know how they've selected the people for that. I got to say, speaking for myself, I am a little bit intrigued. When I first heard that they were that there was a rumor that they were going to release an AI social media app, and my first reaction to that, just on paper, was like, "That sounds dumb." I don't know. I don't know. But then, So one of my favorite creators is iJustine, who we've actually collaborated with on Firefox
Yeah.
Presents. We did a collab with her a couple years ago, and she posted a video um, about the new Sora app. And what's cool about it, there's this feature where you could essentially deep fake yourself. You scan your face like you do for Face ID on Apple, but then it builds like like an AI version of you that you can insert into like crazy videos. Um, and I'm morbidly curious to try it out, quite honestly. And iJustine shared a bunch of hers, and I thought they were hilarious and like kind of scary because like they looked and sounded like her. But she's doing stuff like eating a chair that is like obviously not real life. Um,
Okay. I have to ask the question. Why? What, I I guess people love to consume content, but
sure.
what what is the reason? Like why is like what is the benefit we get out of it besides being like, hee hee, I'm eating a chair? No
Yeah.
shade to iJustine. I just don't know why.
I mean, it is a fair question. The the party line for a lot of AI startups and innovators has been it democratizes the tools of filmmaking, which is a very contentious point of view. Um, but at the same time, I would say so. Meta actually recently released a similar feed. They call it Vibes.
Yes. Yeah. I saw
And I
that.
tried that out because that's not invitation only. I was able to try that out. Crucially, it's missing the AI avatar feature, and I think that for me, that is the part that intrigues me the most because it's
Okay.
like you're inserting yourself into this wild content,
Yeah.
and your imagination, is like putting in a prompt and just like generating these videos. Like I do see the entertainment value in that, and I
Yeah.
think that in if you're just looking at random stuff, which is what Vibes is, the meta version of it, you're watching a bunch of like these surreal AI created videos, which is like impressive on the one hand from a tech perspective, but on the other, it's like I feel my brain cells evaporating. I'm just like, what is, it's like there's no story here. It's just like a bunch of imagery, but like nothing
Yeah.
of substance really. Um,
Right. It's all everyone says this, but it really is all AI slop. And until I see someone use AI to make like a movie as good as Avatar,
mhm.
then we can talk.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly, as a filmmaker myself, have a perspective on that where,
Yeah.
I've been in a project outside of Mozilla. I've been experimenting with some AI tools, and I see it as exactly that, as a tool.
Yeah.
It's not something that should be the be all end all of your production. Ideally, like with any tool, it's just one facet of your toolkit.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm all about it if it makes things more efficient or if you're able to like elevate
Yes.
the work that you would have done otherwise on, in my case, it's self-financed, low budget filmmaking.
Right.
And we're able to do certain kinds of visual effect shots and certain kinds of, generative images that, just expand the scope beyond what we could do on, ordinarily
Yeah.
have done on that kind of budget in the past. So
And
that's,
that answers the why though. Like that's a great answer to why are we using AI for this. And so
mhm,
I appreciate that. And I also like the
yeah.
take of like it democratizes filmmaking and like a lot of those things because animation is grueling work and really expensive. And so to be able to kind of experiment and kind of see how that might show up in your work and other filmmakers' work is really cool. And like, I'm excited to see.
I mean, the argument from the creative side, and I'm kind of in a unique position because I work in tech, but I'm also, I live and work in the creative communities and have a
Yeah.
lot of, I know a lot of people on both sides that have like very strong convictions about either pro AI or anti AI. I would say I'm somewhere in the middle. And I've talked
Yeah.
about this with Kim on Outside the Fox before, where I would describe myself as AI curious. Um, I definitely think that there's a critique to be had in terms of how a lot of AI systems are trained. This relates to OpenAI and their stance regarding copyrighted work. Is that their policy is by default they consider it fair use to use creative work to train their AI unless you opt out. you have to contact them and like flag something and go through this Byzantine process of doing a takedown. The idea that you have to opt out of something is kind of insulting, particularly when it comes to something as sensitive as copyright and
Yeah.
trademark and IP. But a lot of these AI companies, they're really playing fast and loose with copyright law. So it'll be really interesting to see in the coming years the legislation that comes out of this from
Yes.
court cases. Because like recently, Disney and Universal and Warner Brothers and a bunch of other movie studios sued Midjourney for
Mm,
copyright infringement.
yeah.
I think that that's going to be, we're going to see some kind of a precedent from that in terms of either clarifying or reinterpreting copyright law.
Yeah.
But right now, it's kind of the Wild West.
Yeah. That changes things. That's so visual. And like, I think also, not to, be a bummer, but like, digital literacy is not great.
Yeah. Well, I think that AI literacy, I think, is the thing that we all have to. And this is one reason why there are a lot of people very reasonably on the creative side that are very anti-AI and they refuse to engage with the tools just on principle because of the copyright of it all. And like, that's
Yeah.
fair. I can understand that. My position is like, okay, I understand that this is a legal gray area. It's currently legal. Like these are commercially available tools. I want to learn as much as I can about them because I think it sharpens um, our arguments around like
Yeah.
regulating,
Yeah.
and I think that as creative people, we need to be literate in how these tools actually work. Because a lot of the arguments that I hear on the creative side tend to be more theoretical.
Yes.
It's more just the idea of what they are possible. That's not to say that that's not a valuable perspective, but I think that it sharpens the argument if you also know specifically how it works. And my hot take on a lot of Gen AI is that it's actually not as good as either side has kind of framed it. Right? Is like both sides kind of like characterize it as a magic wand. It's like, oh, you just type a few things in and it just yes and no. But most of the time, like 90% of the time, it sucks.
Yeah.
And especially like if I'm using it specifically for a production, let's say, right? It's like I'm a filmmaker. I love to give feedback to creative
Yeah.
teams, right? AI doesn't understand feedback.
No.
You give it feedback. You're like, okay, can you render that again, but with 5 fingers instead of 6? And it doesn't understand what like if you say fingers, it'll fixate on your keywords and be like, oh, you like fingers, and it'll give you like a
Yeah.
finger person or something, and it just like does something crazy. It doesn't really understand, and then oftentimes it's not very good at taking something and revising it, as opposed to just like it just crumples it up and starts over. It gives you something that kind of looks like what you did or what you wanted, but it is like it's a different person with a different face and a different So it's clearly these are tools that are being designed without a lot of input from creative people. Because I hear tech people talk about it, and like the way that they talk about creativity is like it's a problem to be solved.
Right.
Um, I mean, you even mentioned like, it's like animation, it takes a lot of time and resources and it's expensive, but it is there are a lot of talented people that, spend their lives learning to be
Yes.
animators, and that's like and they love doing it. That's part of what
Yeah.
is fun about being a creator is like it no pain, no gain, right? It's like you
Yeah.
learn how to
You
play that guitar, it takes you a long time, but that's also like what makes it impressive.
I always think about Toy Story when you see the sketches and then you see it come to life. And it's so special and so like truly like coming from the heart of those creators and animators. Like I always love the behind the scenes of, those Pixar movies, but
Mhm.
there's none of that with AI animation. Am I
Yeah.
wrong?
Yeah.
Prove me wrong. I don't know.
No, you're right. Also, it's interesting that you mentioned Toy Story because that was the first computer generated feature length animated film, which at the time it was 1995. Also, I visited Pixar during I think it was the 20th anniversary of Toy Story, so
Fun.
they had a gallery that was there, and just a little humble brag.
No, I love that.
Have lunch at Pixar one day. Yeah, I mean, that was extremely innovative at the time, but it also changed the face of animation, where at the time
Yeah.
that was like very new, where animation was largely hand drawn. And a lot of people at the time were like, I don't know if this is animation, is like it just looks so different. It's like 3D animation as a concept, wasn't mainstream, and now it is.
Yeah. And now we got Inside Out 3.
And now we have Inside Out 3. Yeah, exactly. Now they're cranking out nothing but sequels. CGI upended the visual effects industry as well, like both the visual effects and animation industries, I would say, because a lot of, people who worked in traditional animation, background artists, colorists, there's a whole work stream for every little facet of a hand-drawn animated film. You have that with CGI too, but it's, it's just like different teams and different, it's a completely different process. And so that was scary at the time, and it displaced a lot of people, but it also created new opportunities and new, so that is, in the most optimistic way, is a way to frame AI, and like people who are very pro AI try to frame it like that. It's a little different because it seems like the purpose of many AI tools is literally to replace people. So that's, I think, why a lot of folks get scared and are kind of up in arms about, it's like we should maybe pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is something I'm very proud to say is Mozilla has a big hand in advocating for responsible AI, and advocating for policy and legislation around using AI responsibly. We've incorporated AI features into Firefox, and we're experimenting a bit with that. I feel like AI productivity tools, I'm very interested in that as a way to just like make my day-to-day easier. So it's complex. There are a lot of facets to it. I think that painting with a wide brush of just like AI is bad or AI is good, I think is like an overly simplistic way to look at it. I think it's the tool itself has a lot of intriguing potential, but how you apply it, is the important thing.
I agree. I simply agree.
Well, thank you for attending my TED Talk. We're done.
Cut.
No, I think, okay. So Sora, well, I wanted to complete the thought on the AI deepfakes in Sora and like what is appealing to me about that. Setting aside the like problematic copyright issues, or like the problematic idea of like scanning your face and handing it over to OpenAI.
No.
It is what it is. But I don't know. Did you ever do Bitmoji when that came out?
Okay, so my friends and I are really big into Bitmoji right now.
Okay.
Or actually, it's Memoji now.
Oh, it's Memoji.
Well,
that's
actually,
that's
they're two different things.
Memoji is like apples, right?
Yes.
Like, okay.
So I was into Bitmoji for a little bit, but it quickly fell off.
Well, it's the same kind of idea because you're creating like a little avatar, like a cartoonified version of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think about how inherently humans love themselves, love to see themselves.
I mean, it's a vanity thing for sure.
It's vanity. It's vanity. I think about all of the moments where I have like filmed a video of myself just simply talking about nonsense. I call them my like personal podcasts. Like I'm just podcasting away. You look at my TikTok, you won't even see me. But I love to do it. I love to watch myself back. And I think that is something that is really appealing about deepfakes is that you get to watch yourself back, but you get to control so many other different things. And you kind of get to see yourself in different environments and different this and different that. And that comes back to the vanity of it all.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so I understand it.
Yeah, something that Sora is doing, which I think is smart, and I wish that they did something similar for like copyright holders. But when you've created the AI version of yourself, you can control whether you want it to be public, whether you want to allow other people to use your image in other videos, which that sounds kind of scary to me, but like some people might be all about it. Like it's cool that you can opt into that, or you could potentially turn off the sharing capabilities and make it so that no one can use it except you. So, I like that, being able to, empower the user to make the choice whether or not that is public. I think that's a step in the right direction.
That is a step in the right direction. Kudos on that. That should be the standard, though.
Anyway, so in getting to our verdict of fire or tired, I myself I feel like I can't really give a verdict for it until I try it out. So
Fair.
so Sam Altman, why don't you slip that invite code into my DMs?
Give this guy a
I'm waiting.
code now, please.
But I don't know, Hannah, do you have a verdict?
Oh, yeah, I'm so tired. It
Okay.
doesn't bring me joy. It actually scares me, which maybe means it's like fire in the wrong way. Fire I'm running from.
It's on fire.
It's on
We're
fire.
surrounded by fire.
But I'm always curious. I'm not gonna be like I'm gonna tone down the haterade and just say I'll see what happens. See where it goes.
Okay.
Curious.
Well, let's take it home with our final topic. It's
Please.
dealing with a so-called AI actress named Tilly Norwood, who
Tilly
is
Norwood.
reportedly being circled by agencies to represent her or it, which there's been a lot of widespread condemnation of this when it was announced. Everyone has their own hot takes. I agree with a lot of it, I would say, with regard to just the philosophy of it all, of
Yeah.
just acting being a human art form and like an AI, um, you know, version of that isn't really an actor.
No.
And SAG-AFTRA had a statement that condemning it, and everybody, Whoopi Goldberg on The View had a hot take, and I think that they're all I'm fairly aligned with that point of view. I do think though the hysteria around the response to it is sort of, for me, I kind of want to zoom out and just like, I'm still waiting to hear the pitch, like convince me, like Hollywood baby, like pitch it to me. Like what is the appeal to
Yeah.
an audience? I understand the appeal to executives. It's cheaper. She's not complaining about overtime. Maybe doesn't make a PR gaffe on a talk show. Although there have been a lot of like chat bots that have gone on really problematic tirades.
Yeah.
I would say there's a non-zero chance of an AI actress making some kind of a PR gaffe. So I don't know that is necessarily a selling point. But I'm just more thinking in terms of like the value proposition, like the market viability of watching a movie with an AI actress. Like why?
Also, Tilly is a dog's name. I don't know anyone named Tilly in real life. And her Instagram is so weird. I would not follow her. She's a cute AI girl, but it looked like someone on Instagram that was trying to be an influencer in like 2013.
Yeah, it's a little cringe. And
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head where it's sort of like like we're creative professionals. I get frustrated sometimes in like working in corporate circles where there's too many cooks in the kitchen. I'm always advocating for like, okay, we should reduce the number of decision makers and like bring, that's how you create interesting work, is by, just allowing creatives to be creative. Where the whole principle of an AI system is that you're aggregating data from countless, different data points. And it's like the instantaneous version of deciding something by committee. So the thing that's
Yes.
output is the blandest, most vanilla version of a thing. And so that brings me back to this AI actress and Tilly Norwood, where I'm just still struggling to understand. Like, well, for one thing, like talent agencies are circling her. Like, what the hell does that mean? Like, how do you represent an AI actress? Really, what you're doing is representing the person or team that is responsible for creating that algorithm or software, or like whatever, like the character, I guess, that IP.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, the legality of it all is like very up in the air. So I struggle to understand how it works, and it strikes me as something that's like a fad, like some kind of NFT, like Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Yes.
Something. It just seems like they're scrambling to do it because like they don't want to be behind the curve.
Yeah.
I predicted a few years we're going to look back on this and it's going to be quite embarrassing, actually. I think that it feels cringe to me. I just don't understand the market viability for it.
say that. It does feel cringe. It is cringe. And I hope we do look back on it in a couple of years and say, what the heck, rather than there's 100 more AI actresses. And I also think it just begs the question again of like, why? What is the reason and purpose? I hate to think that like an executive of a film studio wants movies with AI actresses. Like, I think that like is really dark. And I think that that's not the world I want to be living in.
Fair enough. Well, verdict. I think we kind of know where our sentiments lie. But is it fire or is it tired? I think we need a harsher verdict than tired, honestly.
Yes. Or I'm like actually having nightmares. I think it's so tired I'm having nightmares because I ate too much chocolate before bed.
We're just taking this metaphor to its
just
like full,
too many different levels. Too many different levels.
All right. Well, with that, we are out of time for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Leave us a comment on what you think about all of this AI stuff. We really want to know. In the meantime, subscribe to our channel and be sure to download Firefox because you know it's the best. We'll see you next time.
See ya.